This message comes from NPR sponsor Rosetta Stone, an expert in language learning for 30 years. Right now, NPR listeners can get Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership to 25 different languages for 50% off. Learn more at rosettastone.com/NPR.
Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. As you all know, I was obsessed with the 2025 Papal Conclave. There were TikTok edits about all the potential candidates, a Twitter account called Club Conclave dedicating to following the updates. And before Pope Leo XIV was chosen to lead the Catholic Church, the media was in a full speculative frenzy. But there was just one aspect of the process that I did not expect: people betting on the outcome of the conclave. Similar to the 2024 presidential election, the conclave became a type of sport to follow. And where there's sports betting.
It's only been 7 years since the Supreme Court decision opened the floodgates for legal betting outside Nevada. In that time, Americans have wagered nearly $500 billion.
That is Danny Funt. He covers sports betting for The Washington Post and is currently working on a book about the sports betting boom. He's been following how sports betting is changing sports and attracting new groups to the possibility of winning big.
In other forms of gambling like slots or playing the lottery, a lot of women traditionally play that. The gender divide is so stark in sports betting, like perhaps 80-20. Men who like this sort of adrenaline rush of high risk, high reward games, sports betting is pretty appealing to them.
A whopping 48% of men 18 to 49 have an account with at least one of the online sports books. Now, if the term sports book sounds unfamiliar to you, don't worry. You probably know these ones.
DraftKings. Now, I know it's the Super Bowl and all, but everyone gets a free bet.
I love betting on the NBA with FanDuel, especially when I've got the world's greatest basketball mind on my side.
Platforms like FanDuel and DraftKings give potential bettors access to all types of odds, wagers, and bets, just with a swipe of their finger.
You don't physically have to go to the casino. That is like rundown and seedy looking, like it's just on your phone.
That is Manny Fidel, a writer and producer who sometimes bets on sports himself.
You might feel more comfortable betting on Aaron Rodgers to throw a touchdown than you would be on the 50-50 chance of getting a red versus a black in roulette, for example.
He wrote an article in GQ about his sports betting experience and how he's opting out of participating in sports betting's biggest and most enticing moneymaker.
Specifically, I've had this beef with the same game parlay. It's lottery-esque, right? It's like you can bet $10 and win $1,000.
While it can be a fun way to spice up a game, sports betting has become so ubiquitous that it almost feels separate from gambling entirely. And for me, that raised some alarm bells.
People think of it as a side hustle or even in like an investing strategy. 80% of American adults who bet on sports think they can make money doing it.
Now, more than ever, finances are at the top of everyone's mind, and young people are feeling that pressure especially hard. But sports betting seems to be hitting a cultural nerve that has some young men in a bind.
There's also just a kind of financial desperation that seems to be at play, turning sports betting into more of a lottery type. Bet a little for the chance at winning a lot is so appealing, just like crypto, where you're sort of saying, I know I'm probably going to lose money, but if this is a way that I could win a ton of money, I'm so desperate, I'll take that shot.
This is Money Troubles. And for the next few weeks, we're looking into the ways everyday people are trying to make ends meet, and what that says about how our culture views labor, basic needs, or even our favorite pastimes. Today, Manny and Danny join me to get into how sports betting has gone from pastime to potential side hustle, even changing the way we watch sports. And I want to know, what does the rise in sports betting mean for the love of the game? Okay, first off, how has sports betting gotten this kind of brand makeover or change in framing that's been so appealing to young guys?
Have you guys ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect? I think that comes into play with sports betting, where bettors who are disproportionately men feel like in sports they know better than the chances of the thing happening. If I put $25 into the S&P 500, generally speaking, you might get $50 in a year or something like that.
The long arc of time
will
get you something.
You'll get some returns on it. Whereas if I put $25 on Steph Curry to make 4 3-pointers tonight, I'll get my $25 back immediately for $50. Now, that's a trap, right? That's what the sports books want you to feel like.
Yeah, well, when you said that brand makeover, which is such a good way of putting it, when ESPN partnered with a gambling company to launch ESPN Bet, one of the on-air hosts got in some trouble for saying this is basically a risk-free investment if you bet on ESPN Bet. I mean, there's just so many ways subtly and, in a more heavy-handed fashion that present this to people as a money-making venture. And survey results of sports bettors bear that out. I mean, again, just last year, there was a survey that said 80% of American adults who bet on sports think they can make money doing it. In reality, maybe 1 in 100 people make money betting on sports long term.
Whoa.
That's what really concerns me about the kind of advertising that we see from sports books. And specifically, I've had this beef with the same game parlay.
Say more about that. I learned a little bit about this and it kind of blew my mind. And I think a lot of our listeners are going to be in the same place.
Regular bet, you bet $10 on the Lakers to win. A same game parlay is you bet $10 that the Lakers are going to win, but also that LeBron James is going to score 20 points and also that Austin Reeves is going to score 10 points. And the more steps you add to it, the higher your payout will be. But every single step has to be successful. Even if one of the 10 fails, then your bet loses. And this is the kind of bet that I've seen the most advertising about from sportsbook.
It seems incredibly risky.
It's incredibly risky, and it's sports books presenting you this fantasy.
The same game parlay, is this like a type of bet that's always been around? Or is it unique to sports betting now?
So it's always existed, but more on the margins. Mm-hmm. But the idea that you could construct one of thousands of different forms of same game parlay on every single game, day after day after day, is a total invention of the online sports betting era. So much so that even a company like DraftKings, that's number 2 nationally behind FanDuel, their executives have told me, we never anticipated just how much this would catch on, that this would be our biggest moneymaker. The margin is so much higher on those bets. The odds are basically cranked up in the house's favor that you're going to long-term lose 20 to 30% of your money on same game parlays. Whereas if you're just betting on the Lakers to win or the Lakers to go over a certain point total, the more conventional types of betting, on those, you're going to lose $5 or $10 for every 100 you wager. So way more easy to burn through your money doing same game parlays.
I don't know. For a long time, gambling was sort of seen as this seedy thing, right? and now you can see, your favorite sports analyst giving bets or Kevin Hart commercials for DraftKings. I wonder, has sports betting rebranded gambling more broadly?
Yeah, the celebrity advertisers has such a big impact. I'm always a little hesitant to make the tobacco analogy for sports betting just because it's such an inflammatory one. You want to be careful there. But if you were to draw a comparison, the way that A-list celebrities marketed cigarettes in, the 1950s and made it seem cool to young people is totally reminiscent of the way that Kevin Hart and Jamie Foxx and LeBron James and all these icons now advertise sports betting. But just the way that it normalizes it among young people especially is such a big part of this story.
Coming up.
Honestly, the way people talk about sports sometimes is the way that owners of teams are criticized of these guys are just chips on a board for them. And it's, who's making me money? What have you done for me lately?
How sports betting has changed the meaning of sports.
This message comes from Schwab. At Schwab, how you invest is your choice, not theirs. That's why when it comes to managing your wealth, Schwab gives you more choices. You can invest and trade on your own. Plus, get advice and more comprehensive wealth solutions to help meet your unique needs. With award-winning service, low costs, and transparent advice, you can manage your wealth your way at Schwab. Visit schwab.com to learn more.
Support for NPR and the following message come from Betterment, the automated investing and savings app. CEO Sarah Levy shares how Betterment utilizes tech tools powered by human advice.
Betterment is here to help customers build wealth their way. And we provide powerful technology and complete human support where technology can deliver ease of use and affordability, and the people behind that technology can provide advice and guidance.
Learn more at Betterment.com. Investing involves risk. Performance not guaranteed. This message comes from The Hartford. Every day, they make business insurance easy. Or easier, anyway. And when it comes to business insurance for mid-size and large businesses, they know just how complex it can be, and businesses rely on them to make the complex challenges less so. That's why at each step, from quotes to claims to everything in between, The Hartford is devoted to making it easier. Connect with your underwriter at The Hartford or visit thehartford.com.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from Middlesex County, New Jersey. Whether expanding a Fortune 500 company or launching a startup, businesses that move to Middlesex County thrive in Middlesex County. You will benefit from talent, investment, and infrastructure that make Middlesex County one of the most innovative business destinations in the U.S. And your business can be there too. Go to discovermiddlesex.com/thrive to learn all of the advantages businesses enjoy and get in touch with a dedicated business advisor.
I wonder about the ways in which we're seeing young men think about sports betting as a side hustle or as a smart financial move, and how that kind of fits in with the way that they have gravitated toward other types of financial risks like day trading or cryptocurrency. Not even just talking about like the money-making aspect, but there's like a bro culture around those things that to me feels very similar to sports betting. Is that something that y'all are observing as well? And if you are, I'd love to hear what you think about it.
There's been a lot of discourse about like the male loneliness epidemic. And in that sense, I see all of these like new kind of micro communities and group chats being formed. And I feel like a weird sense of warmth that like men are talking to each other about something every day and creating these different avenues for communication. Obviously, I'm someone who's like, all right, there's a limit. Like, you know, you've got to be able to engage in this activity responsibly. And, you know, just so my friends don't yell at me after they hear this, I do think sports betting can be like fun if you're doing it responsibly and not kind of using it to get rich quick.
Yeah, there is that like broy hustle culture that you're describing that seems bigger than this. There's also just a kind of financial desperation that seems to be at play, like when we're talking about the appeal of same game parlays, you know, why turning sports betting into more of a lottery type, bet a little for the chance at winning a lot is so appealing, just like crypto, you know, investing in crypto or other types of retail investing where you're sort of saying, I know I'm probably going to lose money, but if this is a way that I could win a ton of money, I'm so desperate, I'll take that shot. And it's the easiest way to spice up a night when you're sitting at home and like watching mid-season basketball or, you know, week 7 NFL football. And, you know, the ability to just like swipe your finger and it's suddenly, you know, the most intense game you've ever watched because you've got a lot of money on the line is irresistible to a lot of people.
Yeah, and that desperation layer to it resonates so much because even on social media, you see like people who have placed bets, you know, tagging actual athletes in their posts, screaming at them for not making the last layup or whatever at the end of the game. You've seen people have real life interactions with athletes. That to me speaks to like the most poisonous aspects of sports betting, where you would bring yourself to you know, go outside of the app and like confront an athlete about their performance on your bet. And so that's definitely scary, like as a mental, you know, concern.
How has sports betting changed how we engage with sports?
Yeah, I mean, the cynics say it's made sports more transactional, where like you used to, in an ideal world, have like a very sentimental bond with your home team or your favorite player. And like there are ideals that draw you to sports of, determination, discipline, teamwork. It sounds sappy, but honestly, we waste a lot of time watching sports. It's usually for those sorts of aspirational reasons. But honestly, the way people talk about sports sometimes is the way that like owners of teams are criticized of, these guys are just chips on a board for them. And it's, who's making me money? What have you done for me lately? I don't have that emotional bond to this game. It's just numbers on a page as I'm trying to, get wealthy. So that to me is honestly depressing.
I feel like sports is one of the few like arenas in society or in culture more broadly where a lot of it, when you get down to it, is really about the joy of hard work. And the joy of hard work is like also appreciated in the fandom, right? Like there's like a real simplicity in what the spectacle is, which is like seeing people do these incredible things with their bodies that they have been through a combination of like heredity and luck and a lot of hard work, they've been able to achieve. Like WNBA World Cup, I'm a different person, okay? I'm like, sports is the universal language, baby. And there's something really beautiful about that. At the end of the day, when you get down to it, that's to me what I've always felt like sports is for. But with this uptick in online sports betting, what is sports about now?
You mentioned the WNBA, and when I got into it, a while back, it felt like it wasn't quite as toxic. Like, of course, these are world-class athletes, playing at the highest level, but it felt a little less toxic than some of the male professional sports, which I love too, but it just was something refreshing, like going to the games or watching the games. It felt different. And this past year, there are a lot of reasons, the polarization of, the Caitlin Clark phenomenon, some new rivalries in the league. Like there were a lot of reasons why it was just a little bit more intense than in past years. But I do think that like the money being bet on the WNBA last year versus previous years may have played a part in making the fan base a little more toxic, a little bit more aggressive in just how they consume the sport. So again, when we talk about the trade-offs of legalization, that's a huge one.
Yeah, I think of sports viewing, as a very kind of ceremonial almost experience. And I've started to see very tiny but very existent examples of like the game of the purity of basketball, for example, being affected by sports betting, not just in the audience, but also like on the actual court. So, we've had actual players get in trouble for betting.
Jonte Porter.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So he's been kind of just completely banned from the league. Thankfully, that was the right thing for the NBA to do. But we don't know the full extent of that, if that's happening in other places where players haven't been caught yet. And so I do, as a fan, have a huge concern about like kind of the sanctity of sports when gambling can get this ingrained into the watching experience.
Gosh. Jeez, oh Pete's. Well, there's a lot that's going on, a lot that's still emerging, and I'm so grateful that I was able to discuss all of this with the two of you. Manny, Danny, thank you both so much.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That was writer and producer Manny Fidel and journalist Danny Funt. And I'm going to put on my influencer hat for a second and ask you to please subscribe to this show on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening. Click follow so you know the latest in culture while it's still hot. This episode of It's Been a Minute was produced by
Alexis Williams.
This episode was edited by
Nina Patak.
Our supervising producer is
Barton Girdwood.
Our executive producer is
Verilyn Williams.
Our VP of programming is
Yolanda Sanguini.
All right, that's all for this episode of It's Been a Minute from NPR. I'm Brittany Luce. Talk soon.
Support for NPR and the following message come from IXL Online. Is your child asking questions on their homework you don't feel equipped to answer? IXL Learning uses advanced algorithms to give the right help to each kid, no matter the age or personality. One subscription gets you everything. One site for all the kids in your home, pre-K to 12th grade. Make an impact on your child's learning. Get IXL now. And NPR listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXL.com/NPR. This message comes from Warby Parker. What makes a great pair of glasses? At Warby Parker, it's all the invisible extras without the extra cost, like free adjustments for life. Find your pair at warbyparker.com or visit one of their hundreds of stores around the country. Support for NPR and the following message come from IXL Learning. IXL Learning uses advanced algorithms to give the right help to each kid no matter the age or personality. Get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when you sign up today at IXL.com/NPR.